It is a promise of hope that parents can make a difference. Tonight, I'm the story, and I'm calling it Born Lucky. Good evening, I'm Leland. I anchor a show called On Balance here on News Nation 5 nights a week. If you've never given us a shot, well, come join us. But tonight, I want to share the part of my life that's happened off camera. The story of the peculiar path that led me here could fill a book. I can say that with confidence because I just wrote that book. It's called Born Lucky. Now, it's true. Almost every TV anchor writes a book, but my story is a little different. So we're going to tell it differently too. I've asked my friend, mentor, and frequent antagonist, Bill O'Reilly, to lend his voice and interviewing style to this project. How did that little experiment turn out? Well, as always, you should be the judge.
I read your book.
Thank you.
I'm very busy. I'm writing my own books, but I like the book, and I'll tell you the one thing that struck me gives people hope. So let's begin with Lucky. That was your nickname.
My nickname until I was 18 years old. I would introduce myself to people as, "Hi, I'm Lucky Vittert." And that's because I shouldn't be alive. I should have been born dead. So I'm being born in the hospital, and the doctor goes, "Oh my God, this is a lucky baby." Turns out the umbilical cord was tied in a knot, another knot, and then around my neck. So, day later, hospital room upstairs, and the doctor who delivered me came by with a Sharpie and crossed out Leland and said, "Call him Lucky."
Amazing story.
So I'm Lucky Vittert.
You go home, and then you're raised like any other American middle-class child.
Right.
Father's job, your mom's tending to you. But then problems start to arise.
My dad could see it because when I would play with other kids, I was running into kids, I was hitting kids. Kids would try to joke with me or throw me the ball, and I'd get angry. It was very clear. I didn't understand how to interact with kids. Social skills to me were completely foreign. Some kids attract friends like magnets. I repelled them like magnets.
You didn't have play dates or anything like that?
No kid wanted to be around me, ever.
Because you just gave off an aura that you were different.
I was very different. And look, we have in the book the report cards that came home, and every one of them in social skills needs improvement, needs improvement, needs improvement, needs improvement, needs improvements.
Okay, my report card said, get him out of here, get him out of here, get him out of here, because that's not unusual for boys.
Well, see, that's why you and I get along, Bill.
Probably. Did you know you were in trouble?
I knew that I had no friends, and I saw everybody else had friends.
Were you lonely?
Terribly lonely. Look, Bill, I got bullied so bad in 5th grade, my dad came over, went up to the PE area where there's all the fields, and my dad goes, "Hey, how's Lucky doing?" And the PE coach goes, "I had to put him with the girls. I needed to protect him."
Why was it too hard for you to play with the boys?
Because I couldn't interact with them. I was like target number one, right? So they would throw balls at me. They were mocking me. They were pushing me around. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to have a conversation. I didn't know how to play or laugh.
Were you confused about this?
Terribly confused and hurt, but I didn't know how to fix it.
The problems got to the point where you had to be assessed.
Right, so the words no parent wants to hear, your kid needs to be assessed. They take me to a little psychology building, medical building. I go in and do all the tests, and on an IQ test, genius is above 150, mentally retarded is below 80. There's 2 halves to the IQ test. Learning disability, some kind of issue, is a spread between the 2 halves of 20 points. My spread was 70 points. So I was mentally retarded in some areas, ingenious in others. And that was the issue. So they said to my parents, "We don't know what's going on." My dad goes, "Is there anything we can do?" Think about that. You're a father, the desperation. Is there anything we can do? And the woman goes, generally not.
How did your folks react?
My dad said, we'll see about that.
Really? He was defiant.
He was defiant, and the woman says, the kid has to have two things. They have to be intelligent, which I kind of was, or they thought I was, and that I had to want it, which means my dad had to teach me and tell me and show me that everything I knew about the social construct in the world was wrong, and he had to figure out how to fix it. So Dad took it upon himself to say, I'm not going to adapt the world to my kid, right? Because that's what was very in vogue at the time. Meet a kid where they're at. Still is very in vogue. You know, little Sally's special. We cannot possibly try to tell her she's not normal. What Dad tried to do was teach me what social interaction looked like. And he said to me as we were writing the book, you didn't have any friends. I thought I could be your friend. So my dad became my best and only friend.
And off they go!
He was your companion.
He was everything.
Did the word autism arise at all, ever?
Not until I was out of college. Mom and Dad never wanted me to think I was different. They didn't tell anyone. There was no special diagnosis. There was no special treatment in school. None.
So your father comes in on a daily basis.
Hourly. When I was diagnosed and when my dad realized I had a real problem, he stopped working and he said, the only hope I have to give my son a normal life is to be there for him every moment.
And your mother was okay with this?
My mother's a saint. And my dad writes that, you know, my mom had to keep him together and me together. So, totally. But, you know, there were a lot of nights that I would cry myself to sleep. And then I didn't know this until we started writing the book. He'd walk downstairs in our house, sit on the living room couch alone, and he'd start crying. He never told me. It was my mom who, when we were writing the book and I was interviewing her, would tell me about coming out at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning because my dad hadn't come to bed. And she would find him in the dark, just sobbing.
Here's a picture we have here of
Yeah.
you and your dad in front of a tree. Tell me the tree story.
So when I was about 5 years old, there's a big tree in my grandparents' front yard. And the tree had a notch. And he put me up on the tree in the notch. I'm standing in the notch, look down. It might as well have been the Grand Canyon. And he says, do you trust me? And I said, of course I trust you, Dad. And I was a scared little boy. I was a fat little kid. I had no friends. I was not confident in any way. He said, okay, jump into my arms. Obviously, he caught me, as any loving parent would. And he said, you can always trust me. And that foundation of trust is what allowed this story to happen. Bill's doing a pretty good job so far, right? But my dad did an even better one, teaching his little boy how to navigate an unforgiving world. How he did it is next. When I was very young, my dad told me to set goals. He encouraged me and pushed me, but his whole thing was you got to do stuff on your own because otherwise you won't think that you can.
So then your father embarks on a program to toughen you up.
Yep. 200 push-ups a day, 5 days a week. Do it for 3 months and you get something special. You get to go to Disney World with your mom. You get to do something special.
And part of the program is another, were you learning to fly?
120.3 CFX.
He didn't want me to, but this was about goals and accomplishments. I had seen a story on the evening news about a little kid who had flown across the country at 10 years old, and I wanted to beat him.
You wanted to be the kid?
I wanted to be the kid. I wanted to be on the news. And I kept bugging my dad, and he finally let me start flying.
Went out for a real clear for takeoff. Thank you.
It was all about goals. Hey, how can you achieve and get out of feeling like you're worthless? What can you do that's going to be different, that is going to be exceptional?
That's called accomplishment therapy.
It was about teaching accomplishment, discipline, and all these things.
It's still an amazing thing for a 10-year-old.
And then when I was 11, I flew across the Atlantic Ocean.
Wow.
Terrific. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Big sense of relief that you've done this now?
Huge.
And what he would say is, I just have to get you into the real world, and people will see how good of a person you were. There were no expectations about grades, no expectations about friends or getting along, any of these things. But there were expectations about hard work, and there were expectations about character. And those were the two things that my dad said will matter later in life, and that's what the standard was.
Thank you all very, very much.
In order to try to teach me social interaction, he'd take me to lunch. Say you and my dad are going to lunch, which is great because I got along with adults. Adults liked me. But if I'd interrupt you, he'd tap his watch.
If you were going on too
If I was
long.
going on too long, or if I interrupted you and wanted to talk about something different. And that was two things. One, stop talking. But two, bookmark it. Because we'd go back later and he'd talk about it. You remember when Mr. O'Reilly was talking about his book? Why do you think it was important to talk about the book you were reading?
Right, he tried to give you a line of reasoning.
And show me what I was doing.
Right.
So it became a learned skill.
So your father became your confidant, he became your teacher, primary teacher, but you still had to go to school. Just a private school?
Just private school in St. Louis. My dad went to the same school.
All right. But it's free fire zone on Leland Vittert. Leland Lucky Vittert isn't lucky in the school. He's getting hammered every day.
Right. And the principal, 3 weeks into school, 7th grade, first of 6 years at this school, the principal called my parents in and said, look, you got to know. My mom and dad are sitting there. You got to know, most of the people here think Lucky is really weird. And then she followed up. Second arrow through the heart. I do too.
With no compassion.
Zero compassion. Now, you think about that. My parents could have turned around and said, well, he's autistic. Well, he's got all these problems.
Right.
And they didn't. And that was part of my dad's strategy, whatever you want to call it, because he felt as though if I was given special accommodations, if I was treated as the bubble wrap kid, then I'd never learn. And I'd then go off into the real world and would never figure it out. I went to school every day, and I would go to school, and I would come home, and in the words of my mother, it was like we had to put you back together every night because of how broken you were.
Because the kids in the school, with the tacit allowance of the teachers and faculty, just brutalized you.
Brutalized. Look, and not only...
And you remember it to this day.
To this day. Look, you don't forget when people humiliate you. So 8th grade, I'm in art class. It's like desks and painting and paintings on the walls, whatever. And this teacher looked at me in art class in front of the whole class, 8th grade, and said, if my dog was as ugly as you, I'd shave its ass and make it walk backwards.
And why did the teacher do that?
Because I was being obnoxious.
So he was disciplining?
No, he was just humiliating me because he was annoyed and wanted to put me in my place. But you imagine if the teacher does that, what that allows the kids to do.
So then comes the most difficult part of any childhood, high school.
It's kind of like a newsroom.
Well, but you're a little older in the newsroom. Did the daily pain that you experienced in grammar school continue in high school?
Sure, because then you understood how isolated you really were.
How'd you get through that?
I'd come home every night and yell at Dad. Every day at 4:20 in the afternoon, which is when school let out, he would be waiting for me to walk home. And we would talk, and he would listen to me be so upset and not understand why people were treating me like this and why he couldn't do anything about it.
Did you get angry at him at the time?
Horribly angry. I'd scream at him every night, get me out of here. How can you let them do this to me?
Fix it for me.
You had to vent. And I think he understood that that's what he needed to do and to be there for.
Now, your father knew that this high school wasn't working out, even though he attended.
Right.
But he didn't pull you.
He didn't pull me because I think he realized that no matter where I went, I was going to have an awful time.
Okay.
And I think that's fair. But Bill, I'll tell you this. When I graduated, the number 2 guy at the high school said to my dad, he said, we've had kids have it harder than Lucky. We've never had anybody who had it as hard as he did make it through.
All right, so now you're going to college.
Right. College was still hard.
You went where?
I went to Northwestern.
So it's a big school in Chicago.
Big school in Chicago. I was a freshman. And look, part of the reason my dad understood me and could help me was because he's a little bit spectrum-y too. But he used to always tell me a story about when he was a freshman in college, that he got blackballed at all the fraternities. He didn't get a single bid when he rushed the fraternities. and what it was like that night, the rejection. And the same thing happened to me. So January of my freshman year was rush, and I called my dad on a snowy night from a corner at Northwestern. I said, look, Dad, I said, now I'm just like you. I don't have a bid anywhere. And I said to him at that moment, I think I've got to realize that it's about me. That you've always told me it's about everybody else who doesn't see the good in me, but I need to realize it's about me. And I need to figure out how to change. And I was old enough at that point to do it.
18, 19 years old. And what did you want to change?
I had to put into effect the lessons that he taught me. But really, the only time it started to get better was when I could prove myself by working hard. And that was the currency my dad always taught me mattered, your character and your work ethic. And once I got into the real world is when it clicked for me that I could work hard and I could be a good person, and that would translate to results. Yes, the journey from autistic kid to anchor man was about to really begin. It would take me from Little Rock to Libya to the war zones right here at home. That's next. How would that work out? Almost feels like a season of The Apprentice. Why American leadership, as crazy does, of both parties, mea culpa. You want to know how I got the journalism bug?
Well, I want to know why you wanted to do it.
The one thing my dad and I bonded over, my dad was my best friend. What did my dad know about? Politics and business. He would talk to me endlessly. I was 6 years old. I could talk to you about Dukakis and Mondale and George H.W. Bush and Bill Clinton and Ross Perot and everything else, the Gulf War. Because my dad was the only guy I talked to. So I always loved politics, and that became my whole world and focus.
You decided to become a TV journalist. So you graduate from college. You got a job as a
reporter
for a small station.
Small station, Little Rock, Arkansas, KATV. One of the reasons officials say security lines here at Little Rock are so short, these plastic bags, they don't give them to you everywhere. Here at Little Rock, though, things for like sunglasses, change, pen. How about your cell phone goes in here too? My dad told me to set goals. This is 2002. Peter Jennings, Tom Brokaw, Nightly News, everything else. I was watching this guy named Bill O'Reilly on Fox News. And I looked up online what was the youngest anyone had ever made it to the network. 30 years old. I want to be a network correspondent before I'm 30. What happened on Independence Day? Saying it protects their right to do what they want, like ride without a helmet. Here at Original Wisconsin Ducks, the Ducks are full. Live in the newsroom, Leland, NBC 15 News. Yeah?
Now, your autism, did that interfere with your work?
Sure. Makes you a target. Anybody who doesn't fit in is a target.
In 3, 2, 1, police are still investigating a fiery crash as a result of a high air.
So, television newsrooms are not known for sensitivity.
No.
So you're at the point now, as a young adult, where the meanness didn't affect you directly?
I think I was at a point where the meanness stopped hurting me and it became fuel. Live at Winter Springs High School, Leland, Action News at 10.
Do you have any social life, dating, anything like that?
Yeah, I was starting to date in Orlando. Started to have a social life, started to have friends. And look, I started to learn how to interact with people.
You're coming into the mainstream now, all right?
Yeah, I am putting into action what my dad always said would happen. We've spent much of the past 2 weeks reporting on voting problems.
The pettiness directed to you, you're whacking it away, focusing in on becoming a network correspondent.
There are few debates in America that raise the level of emotion to the one that this debate does.
All right, so then you get to Fox News, which is a network.
Yeah.
You get hired, and you get hired on skill. Because I remember I was there. You applied, they looked at your tape. They said, we need a Middle Eastern correspondent, which is a dangerous job. There's not a lot of people who want it. They hire you. Was FNC aware of your autism?
No, nobody was. Until this has been written, I have never told anybody.
All right, so they hire you as a journalist, send you over to Jerusalem.
And I knew nothing.
You're thrown into an alien environment where you don't have your dad.
I don't have anybody. The first time I called my dad when I was heading to Egypt, you remember the Egyptian revolution? And I called my dad, and he was crying, saying, please don't go. Because he was so scared of what would happen to me.
Were you scared?
Terrified.
You were.
I had no idea what I was doing, Bill.
So you were terrified. Why'd you go?
Because it was my job, and because what I signed up to do.
Okay.
And you sign up to do something, you go do it. And I told my dad, I said, look, I cannot go to Egypt. But if I don't go, I quit, and I come home, because I failed.
All right, so you went, overcame your fear. All right. And you do well over there.
The crowd behind me, 18 floors down, is chanting, with our soul, our blood, we protect the prophet.
And I'm not saying that because I know you did well, because I use you sometimes, and, you know, I'm pretty tough. I know who's good and who isn't good. You do well. All of the maladies that you had accumulated over your life seem to have receded a bit at that point. Is that true?
True, I'd say I'd gotten better at hiding them.
All right, but they were still there. You was just disguising them, not discussing them.
Yeah.
Never came up.
Never came up. And look, I asked my dad, why didn't you tell anybody? He said, number one, I never wanted you defined by it. But number two, I don't think anybody cares. Nobody cares what's going on.
It's none of their business, and you want to be stigmatized anyway.
But then it was doing the job that all of the things that he wanted me to do and had taught me came together, because it was the hard work, it was my character,
and he could see
that
you.
mattered. He could see me on TV.
These protesters are walking forward to try and protect themselves from the rubber bullets of the Egyptian military. Shepard?
Leland Vidder watching it all from above.
That was the moment that it was like all of those awful things in high school that happened to you. Now, the currency of life that he used to always tell me, the currency of life is not the currency of high school. The currency of life was paying off.
That's a nice moment.
Well, it had taken them an awful lot of work.
Were you afraid the whole time?
Being afraid keeps you alive, Bill. When you stop being afraid, you should stop. And look, that's why I stopped. I realized that I was addicted to the adrenaline.
Or you were getting there.
I was getting there.
Right.
And I said, I got to come home.
So then you spend, how many years over there? 5?
4 years in the Middle East, and then came back in 2014. I'm in D.C., and I did your show after the Baltimore riots, when Sharpton shoved me down.
Right.
Excuse us. Excuse us. Whoa. You'll push members of the media, but you won't protect businesses from looting, sir?
Then you get into that buzzsaw of the 2020 election.
Yep.
Which destroyed a lot of careers.
They can try to steal the election from us.
What happened?
So, a couple weeks after the election, one of Trump's spokespeople come on the weekend show and starts mouthing off about how every vote needs to be counted and on and on and on. And I kept saying, show me the proof. And we started screaming at each other.
Answer the question, and then you get to talk. The question is
I did answer,
what do you want to
interrupted
have
me the first time.
What do you want to have happen with those 700,000 votes?
All right, so you were aggressive with her.
Yeah.
All right. And that would alienate
Trump. That would alienate Trump supporters, something Fox was concerned about. And they said, Leland's done.
Right. That was a tactical mistake on your part because you had to know where you were working.
Maybe. My dad always taught me do the right thing and do your job.
Okay.
Stand on principle. I think I had a Pollyanna view of the world.
Okay. Look, you're going to work for a corporation. Don't expect to be treated fairly. Every corporation has an agenda.
Right. They made a decision. That's it.
That is life in the fast lane, to use a cliche.
Yeah.
So then, after you took this blow, because it is a blow, what did your father say?
I mean, I was mid-30s, no job, no prospects, nothing.
Right.
And my dad said, look, he said, you went to school every day. Every day you got beat up and beat down in high school. You got up, you went to school every day. You can get back up now.
Good for him. Good advice, right?
Great advice. And by the way, if he had not forced me, if it had not been that hard when I was a kid, I wouldn't have known I could do it now. And that was the lesson coming.
The discipline that he taught you back then kicked in on your low point in adulthood.
Adversity is something to embrace, and for parents to have their kids embrace it first.
And then, as it always happens with good people, you get a break.
We welcome you to the Ferris Network on television. I get a break. Sean Compton, the president of News Nation, called me. He said, hey, we're starting something new. and we want you to be a part of it.
Out of nowhere, right?
Out of nowhere. And in our first phone call, he said, we need a guy to be our Bill O'Reilly.
Uh-oh. I think I would have walked away right then.
I said, I can't do that. I said,
right. Who can? Who wants to?
Well, not who wants to. Who can? I said, O'Reilly's one in a billion. I couldn't do that. I said, but I can try to do journalism for you.
And so they hire you, and you become a primetime guy.
How would you advise Donald Trump to answer that?
And that's where your professional story is right now. But
how am I doing, Bill? In the presidential race, DDHQ, not ready to make a projection for Nevada.
I think you're doing very well myself, all right? And if I didn't think you were doing well, I would have damn told you by now, and you know it.
That's true.
Okay.
And you've told me a few times.
Well, nobody's perfect except me.
Well, Bill may be perfect at many things, just ask him. But he's not the perfect sister. Luckily, I had one, and you're about to meet her.
My name is Liberty Vittert, and Lucky is my older brother, and somehow he has convinced me to talk to Bill O'Reilly.
So, Liberty, it must have been an adventure for a young, actually little girl, to be growing up in a home that was just intense with your dad and Leland. What are your first memories of that?
Really, the first memory that I have ever is I was in kindergarten, and Lucky was a fifth grader, and we'd walk home from school together. I would look up at Lucky, and he was crying, and I'd hold his hand because I knew, that's what you were supposed to do when someone was sad.
Right.
And so I remember not understanding why he was so sad, but it was every single day for a whole year.
Did you ask your mom and dad why he was crying?
Yes, I did. It took me about 2 or 3 weeks before I was ready to ask mom and dad, because I didn't know if that was private to Lucky. I just, you're little, you don't understand. And my mom told me that whenever Lucky comes home from school, we have to put him back together, because he has a hard time at school and other people don't. And so it's our job as his family to put him back together every day. It's my earliest memory.
Was your relationship with your brother, would you say, normal in the house?
I mean, we still fight today, so I don't know how normal. But yes, I mean, I was the little, your brother's 6 years older. He's like a godlike figure to any little girl. Your big brother is always the big protector, you look up to him. It was as normal as it could be. But I think, it was seen. There was every day we'd come home from school, and Lucky and my dad would spend the next 4 or 5 hours together until it was time to go to sleep.
Did you feel neglected at all?
No, people have asked me that before, and I think it's something that maybe siblings of kids who go through stuff like this sometimes feel. But my mother always made it about all of us putting Lucky back together, and that was the job of all of us helping
you were
him. I was included.
In the therapy, the therapeutic part of the family. But you didn't know that. You do have to call your sister extraordinary, because I know how annoying you can be.
Yeah, well.
And she seems to have overlooked it all.
Sometimes.
Yeah,
there was a sense in our family of it's us against the world. But the key is us.
Now, were you aware that your sister, younger than you, was subjected to a fairly intense upbringing?
I never realized the cost to Liberty of being the younger sibling of a child or of a brother who had the issues I had.
Yeah.
I was excited to go to a high school where my big brother was the senior. And I remember it was maybe the first week, a teacher said to me, "I just really hope you don't turn out like your brother." And, it was nothing against me. It was obviously all against Lucky.
But it is an insensitive comment.
Sure, they're jerks. A lot of,
right.
As a teacher, I can say a lot of teachers are jerks.
No doubt.
Look, the title of the book's Born Lucky. And I think I have to acknowledge how lucky I am, right? Lucky that I had a sister who, despite the fact that they called her the retarded kid sister, always stood up for me and always loved me and sort of didn't mind the scarlet letter, or at least never made me pay a price for the fact that she had that scarlet letter.
the people that did the things to them that they, I mean, these are some of the crummiest, really shameful people, what they did to him. And Lucky didn't use one name in this book. And believe me, we all remember them. Now ask me and I'm happy to tell you. But Lucky's not going to. And I think that that's a really huge part of this, is that, you know, ignoring what these really terrible people did and focusing on the triumph that Lucky has had.
Liberty, was there ever a time when you said, I just can't do it? It's too much pressure on me at school. And was there ever a time where you kind of just wavered a little?
No, never. I mean, that's what family is you don't waver on those things. I mean, you may cry silently, you may cry to yourself, you may have moments personally, but to the outside world, you never waver. But, you know, Lucky has always been, and he won't say this, you know, he never says good things about himself. Lucky has always been my biggest protector. He's always been loyalty. It's what our parents did, is that they didn't instill values of be good at academics or be good at athletics. It was love each other, be loyal to each other. Family means more than anything.
So I can declare with no hesitation that my family's approach worked out for me. But it was risky. What do the experts say about those decisions? That's coming up. There's a reckoning right now about parents. Parents do have an important role. Look, my father did nothing that any of the gentle parenting, any of the new age stuff, fathers are told and have been told for a long time, they don't really matter. It's, you know, the village is going to raise your kid. The village didn't raise me. The village crushed me. And it was my dad who championed me.
Saved you.
Saved me. And that's a whole different story than what's being told in America right now.
Very interesting point.
There's a whole spectrum of parenting that couldn't tolerate children being uncomfortable. What I sometimes call the wah-wah-wubsy culture. You can't say anything against my neurodiverse child because they're neurodiverse, therefore a protected class. And then you don't do anything for that kid except sort of defend them rather than help them manage and grow with this particular biology. And that is a horrible way to raise human beings.
I think that there are insights that we can draw from Leland and his experience that are applicable to other folks who are like him. But I think it is also fair to say that we should not say that this book is a blueprint for every autistic person. Autistic people can have really significant challenges that impact their ability to, you know, communicate or interact or even, you know, be safe in their daily life. And, you know, those folks often require 24/7 care.
On the other side, there are maybe as much as 30% of neurodiverse children with autistic spectrum who will outgrow it in one manner or another. And it seems to me that if we can identify them and challenge them, we will help them.
But in this book, this is a story in some ways about his parents taking a risk. They don't have him adopt his autism label despite having him assessed young, meaning even in terms of getting services through education, right? He's not labeled in school. And that is kind of complicated, right? Because our services exist for a reason. They exist to help people who need them. They're really, really important for a lot of people. Labels can give you a sense of identity. They can help you figure out who you are and give you some roadmaps. But in this book, it's a story about motivation, right? And thinking about what are the things that motivate him and trying to let those motivations lead and drive him and his story.
It's actually a great model for what's called rapprochement, which is that ability to go out into the dangerous world, giving that child the gift of failure, which we protect kids from. It's a gift. Bringing them back for the refueling and the repair. That's parenting. That's the job. And if you can do that effectively, your kid is actually able to get from you what he or she needs, things are going to turn out great.
I think what's happened over the last 30, 40 years is that our sense of possibility for autistic people has grown. When Leland was young, the view of what autistic people can be was pretty narrow and scary for parents. So, yeah, in the 80s and 90s, Rain Man was the cultural representation of autism that existed. It was by far the most prominent one. Now, thanks to many people who are known in the media, now including Leland in this book, right? That sets the bar for what future people can see and can do with that label. The idea that a field that's about communication, journalism, can be a place that an autistic person can succeed and thrive is a really important model and lesson for many people.
I grew up with autism. It was hell.
You know, he's able to both burrow in on a topic and learn really deeply about a thing, but then also kind of not get deterred when trying to press somebody for an answer.
Trump ran the same playbook in 2017, 2018. The American economy was roaring. It's why he got reelected in 2024.
It's a somewhat new insight that comes out of this book about one of the many ways that autistic strengths can be leveraged for professional success.
All parenting is hard. It just is. And whatever you think you're going to be as a parent, the child may have other plans. The task in parenting is to develop a flexible emotional regulatory system, and that requires exposure. How do we build bodies? Expose it to physical stress. Minds are no different.
So to repeat, what my parents did won't work for every autistic kid, but it worked out okay for me. In fact, not only did I find a job I loved, I found a woman who loved me. Are we going to have kids? Well, give me a minute to think about that during this quick break.
Now you are married.
God bless her.
New marriage, new circumstance.
It's still, it feels okay now, 3 months in.
Is the autism now part of your daily life in either the career or the marriage?
Autism is not something you're ever cured from.
Your wife knows that.
Sure.
Do you discuss that with her?
No, but there are times that she pats me on the arm and says, "You're not seeing this right," or "You need to think about this," or "You need to calm down."
You write about belonging.
Yeah.
And you never did.
No.
What about now?
Look, belonging, yes, in my marriage, that I found a woman
That's good.
that is willing to put up with me and understands me and that loves me. Belonging in work and career and in social settings, I still fight every day. Every social interaction, I still have to think about. I still have to work on my eye contact. I still have to really focus on listening and understanding how someone else is feeling at the moment. I still talk to my dad 4 or 5 times a day.
To this day?
To this day.
Does he still mentor you and give you advice?
All the time. I'll put it this way. When you have now a wife and a father, you have no idea how many wrong things you can do by noon.
It's a good line. So, are you going to have kids?
I'm inspired to.
Well, you know, I don't want to be Barbara Walters here and probe into your private life, but with all you've been through.
Yeah.
And
It's
your
scary
wife,
as hell. I never thought I could live up to be the parent my father was, right? That's the bar. It's a very high bar. So I think now I would be inspired to try.
so you're considering that. You're considering the future.
Yeah.
So your story is, as I said at the beginning of the interview, a hopeful story, all right, for the millions of people affected by autism.
I would say it's a hopeful story, though, beyond autism, and here's why. Because the diagnosis culture in America is insane. It's a huge business. ADHD, anxiety, social maladies, learning disabilities, physical disabilities, you name it. Almost every kid now has some kind of diagnosis. They tell the parents, here's medicine. They tell the parents, here's a performance enhancement plan. Here's special accommodations. Here's all these things. They never look at the parents and say, you can make a difference. And by the way, everyone talks about the benefits of a diagnosis. Nobody talks about the cost of a diagnosis to a kid. Is it really better to give them a diagnosis? Is it better to sort of push away all the difficulties in their life? Or is it better to hold their hand as they fight through it?
It depends on the kid.
Sure. And depends on the parent. And that is what parents need to hear. There is hope. You can make an enormous difference. The love of a child and pushing them to be more really matters. And I'm proof that that's possible. So we've reached the end of the show, and you're probably asking, where was Leland's dad tonight? Isn't he the real hero of this story? The answer is yes, of course. But like other true heroes, Mark Vitter doesn't accept that label. He did write an epilogue to the book, and it's my honor to give him the last word tonight. So Dad writes of other parents. If you are in this fight, it will be a challenge that is the most worthwhile of your life. It will probably take years and years, but it will be worth it. Dad, I work every hour, every day, to be worth your dedication. Thank you. I love you.